Academia is more than research output and publications. In this seminar series, we discuss the personal and social aspects of academic work that are not discussed enough. Welcome to Life in Academia.
Hello, everybody, and a special hello to our speaker, Débora de Castro Leal, a lecturer in human-computer interaction at the University of Siegen. Débora has a wide-spanning background. Not only does she have years and years of experience in UX things, but she also sits on the steering committee of the International Development Innovation Network, and her research interests are based in how communities experience and deal with economic and technological pressures in areas of post-conflict and social instability, especially in communities and in Brazil and the Colombian Amazon forest. And today, Débora will talk about what activist academia work is, how we can conduct activist academic work that is safe for everybody involved, how activist academic work is perceived, and how academic structures uphold problematic issues and in our communities. So this topic truly forces me to stick to our mantra, celebrate progress, not perfection, because I feel like I should know so much more about this. And I feel in our woke culture nowadays, it is a flaw not to be perfectly educated on every topic. That's why I am genuinely excited to have this chat with Débora today. So please join me in welcoming Débora de Castro Leal.
Thank you. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can you all see? Yeah? Okay. So I would like to thank the organizers of Life in Academia for the opportunity to talk here today. So my name is Débora Leal. I come from Brazil. I might defend my PhD thesis anytime soon. But now I'm a lecturer and a researcher associated at the University of Siegen here in Germany. And in this talk, I will bring a bit of my previous work as an activist, so you have an understanding of the path. I'm trying to not be so academic. So we have a storytelling, and then we can talk more about anything that you want, if it's more specific or more academic. And I navigate through the boundaries between researcher and activist, looking specifically at the gray areas that exist where these two modes of seeing and understanding the world come together. Okay. And what does it mean to be an activist? For me, not for me, but it is a person who believes strongly in political and social change and takes part in activities such as public protests to try to make change. But in my case, activism means to demonstrate a commitment to stay activated for the structural change me and the people around me wants to make. So it's not only about myself trying to help people. And so here's how I started everything. I have 15 years experience in software engineering and system management, but in 2012, I decided to quit my IT career to experience co-design activities around the world. First, I encountered some activists in my own city, where we mapped streets in favelas in Rio using OpenStreetMaps. These are some pictures. In the same year, I also supported rural farmers in Rio de Janeiro, developing a sensor to measure the amount of CO2 inside of the greenhouse where they cultivated mushrooms. The next year, I traveled on a project called Hackerbus, where we talked about activism, public transparency, and open data. And this is kind of a sabbatical year that I was taking, and then I had experiences with many communities. But in 2013, after meeting a professor from MIT who inspired me because of her simplicity in working with the design process, I moved to Boston to improve my English and work in collaboration with the lab that she is the founder and director. So I've been collaborating with them, and today I'm part of the steering committee board of the International Development Innovation Network. Through this partnership with MIT, I managed to also get national and local universities engaged in design process. I traveled with people with different backgrounds to regions where basic public services were lacking. As you will see, for each opportunity of engaging with local people, we would investigate needs that we could somehow solve or offer. In this case, many of the households have no access to electricity in this community that is called Curralinho. It's in the middle of the rainforest, the Brazilian one. So we brought some solar panels as donation, and we offered classes of electric and electronics and about maintenance of solar panels. This other was in São Paulo, also in Brazil, and together with the community members, we projected and built an affordable and environmentally sustainable waste management and treatment system using banana trees. In this other example, we were organizing an event and trying to fill the gap between the initial humanitarian response to a disaster or conflict and the resettlement and recovery that follows. This we had partnership with Doctors Without Borders. In this example, in Uganda, instead of delivering aid to refugees in post-conflict zones, we wanted to reduce the risks that women in camps face when going out to collect firewood by decreasing the amount of fuel needed for cooking. So what happened is that when they would go to the forest to get wood, maybe they could be killed or raped. So they were burning plastics, their own clothes to make food. So we were thinking about alternatives, how to make it. And we found this, and so many energy saving cookers have been introduced by NGOs in the camps, but few have been accepted because they didn't have they didn't look like a cook for them, a cooker. So the refugee and community participants explained that women often reject cooking devices that look different from traditional stoves. So this influenced our design process, and we had to build cook stove out of clay in the same way they usually make, but with a new compartment to keep the rice cooking for 1 hour longer without the need to use fire. The last project before I joined the academia was to build an internet community network. In this example, we used local resources and local knowledge to build a tower that would receive the internet signal from another tower. I will explain later how does it work better, but so it was through this engagement with these friends who has maintained an internet community network for 6 years that I decided to go back to the academic world and move from heart and hands-on to a heart and head-on. And I moved from being an activist to becoming an academic. So the PhD program was an opportunity to reflect on my experience and analyze it from different perspectives. Conferences, workshops, summer schools and colloquiums were opportunities for me to learn how academics think and work from the inside. And while I already had a lot of data for my PhD from my previous work, I had to combine theories, concepts, methods, and perspectives with my experiences and emotions. And it was a deeply dislocating process to learn that I was not at all acquainted with many of the words scholars use frequently. And even more when I noticed that familiarity with the terms does not necessarily mean comprehension. And how my work was perceived. Besides feeling lost in my first year of academic life with all those names and words and sentences that didn't make sense for me, I had an experience to present the idea of a paper. And when doing that, a senior professor reacted to my action research approach, saying, "This is not science, you are not a scientist." And having an emotional connection to my research partners, the trust in them and interest in their account was also not well appreciated. One of the academics said, "So your data is based on your belief in what they told you." And that's were things that I were listening in my first years of as an academic. So in my PhD, I would have to go back to communities with a new lenses. This time I was getting paid and I was afraid the power relation would be different. So I would like to understand how the community members saw me as an academic, not an activist anymore. And what I heard about academics from the community members that I worked with was, they come here, get all the information for their degree and never return. And I did not want to be seen like that. Of course, I'm not talking about all the academics, but those who, some experience that the people I worked with had. For me, research is not a neutral or detached academic exercise. Rather, is an activity with a responsibility in certain political, economic, and social contexts. So I had to read, study, and learn that my research sits alongside HCI's ongoing explorations of social justice-oriented action research, participatory action research, feminism, as well as post and decolonial approach to research. And in HCI, you can see them converted into justice-oriented interaction design, feminist design, HCI, decolonial computing, and post-colonial computing. But we have also seen the growing debate around the use of these terminologies, their application and theoretical argumentation of what it means to do good or to work in justice-oriented way. So I draw and build on these theories from which HCI more widely, but also from more specialist literature from other disciplines that relate directly to the context within which I work. So I will now start going through to one of my papers, and I will explain better how it was written. So the use of digital technology in that village, it's close to my hometown. It became my main research topic during my PhD. But to get to this paper, I had to read a lot, study, recall diaries, feelings and attitudes. I had to listen to the recordings that I had and write about my years of unpaid activist work. So this is the map. So you can see here on top, you can see the capital. There is a tower in yellow. It means that there is a signal of internet coming from here, crossing the rivers, the islands, reaching the school. And there is a third tower at the end. That is where the Association of Organic Producers is located. And that's how we built all this infrastructure to make the internet connection to be in this community. So all this area in green, that is the forest, like cell phone coverage, zip code and postal service, sewage and garbage collector, and many other public services. This is the harbor of the community, and that is the tower where we invaded and we put it a router, an antenna to receive the signal of the internet. So during this process of identifying the tower is abandoned, what can I do? Should we build another one and build the prototype as I showed you before? We installed antennas and radios in the forests, and we also need the local knowledge about the natural environment of the region. For example, from which directions does the rain usually come from, so we can build a post properly? Which trees do not have much leaves, so the radio passes more easily? Or which trees can we cut and use some branches to cut some branches so we can make the radio go through and do not suffer so much? So it was very exhausting work because we didn't want to bring all the solutions from the capital, like all the zip things are made of plastic. We would like to use string vines, use local resources somehow in some small things, so we didn't have to depend on things from the capital. With this, we created the Wi-Fi network that allows a more stable connection to the internet in the school, health center, and association of organic producers. This is a picture of when we were building the third tower. But to give you an overview of their way of living, every house usually has an extra area where the family work to produce flour out of a root called cassava. This area is full of indigenous technologies that have been forgotten, improved, and substituted. Cassava flour is the oldest and most common production in the region. The production of cassava flour is in the community families for many generations, where they would travel to the capital by boat to sell the production in a fair. Nowadays, many of the producers have the contact of the clients by WhatsApp and only go to the capital to deliver the products and get money. The other traditional production is açaí. Another member of Acará has been in the açaí business for 19 years. Previously, he would take the basket full of raw açaí and negotiate the price with clients at the fair in Belém, very similar to the cassava flour production. However, in the last 5 years, this man has been selling only to one specific woman, where the delivery is scheduled through WhatsApp. So now I will just not pause, but maybe I would like to interact with you, with people that are listening. And I would like to know from instinct, like if you can type in the chat, or if you can tell me or can talk, what are your thoughts when you think about the HCI and STM opportunities that you see in this community? Does anyone want to say something or just type? Or maybe people are shy after the holidays that they had yesterday.
I guess it can improve the commercial activity because it was going along with only one person, basically.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, usually that's what the first thoughts I had was how to make them sell faster, or how can I promote their products to more people? How can we think about a website so they can sell their products? How to make it a commodity? Are they using Instagram to promote their products? So there were thoughts that I was, Suzanne Bow also said here, e-commerce, and that's exactly that were my thoughts. And I will continue. But when I asked one producer if him or his family were looking for more clients, he said that is the amount that they can produce in a specific time. So there is no reason to look for more clients. The producer of açaí, he answered me, no, that's not possible. I can sell just the amount of açaí that the trees can give it to me. And that was really surprising, and takes me to this book, Anita Say Chan's book, Networked Peripheries, that details the chains of a Peruvian village that this village undergoes when a local traditional craft with roots in pre-Columbian indigenous tradition is being turned into a commodity traded on global markets. Through a variety of instruments of neoliberal globalized capitalism, including intellectual properties titles, trainings, and investments, the production methods are transformed from hand-based to almost industrial in order to produce at scale. So here she says that people are transformed from craft people to modern entrepreneurs and business people to work with global clients, and the village community is transformed into a group of enterprise competing for orders and investments. So chance demonstrates the risk to rural, traditional, or non-Western communities such as Boa Vista do Acará. And that was one of my questions when I was working with the community. That is, sorry. You can watch the presentation of this research at Kai YouTube channel. I did a detailed analysis of the use of digital technology and economic practice in Boa Vista do Acará. And based on those data, I built a concept such as the word system analysis, the buen vivir, and the colonial thinking. If you have any questions, you can ask me here, and I can see if the chat pops up, I can see the question. But now, if you don't have questions, I can go to a second paper that is also related to activism. The second paper is this one. In more than 1 year of engagement with former combatants from FARC in Colombia, where I participated in the organization of a 2-week design summit in the camp, I learned how digital technology mediates the difficult task of transitioning from a culture of opposition to civilian members and to active political actors. From being a Marxist guerrilla army to members of a Colombian capitalist civil society. Here we used the concept of social capital, reflecting on bonding and bridging aspects of it. And what does it mean? This is the territorial space where you can see in the middle of the Colombian rainforest, there is this camp. They were controlled, this whole area was controlled by FARC. FARC is a guerrilla movement that existed for more than 50 years. And until the end of 2016, they were controlled by them. And in 2017, they had the peace agreement was signed. So the FARC members, they delivered their weapons to the UN mission and began their reincorporation in civilian life, moving to 26 areas across the whole country, called now as populated center. Before was ETCR, and now is called populated center. The objectives of those areas were to create conditions for ex-combatants to lay down their guns and to prepare them for their transition to civilian life through training and capacity building offered by the government. So this space is remotely located and had around 400 inhabitants when I visited. With the government support, they were able to construct their homes, a meeting hall, classrooms, greenhouses. And this occurred while other elements of basic infrastructure were missing. The next electricity line is 5 kilometers away, so the camp relies on electricity from a diesel generator. As a result, the community is frequently without electricity, running water, or ways to properly store food. So the first time I went there, I went there in January 2018. And during my first visit, the access to internet and cell phones was still very hard. But they had some posts that you can see, they put the cell phone there and they wait for the cell phone to work. So usually they would have some posts around the area where they would have cell phone coverage. But in August 2018, some months later, many houses had already their own antennas to receive the radio signal from a private internet service provider. Now you have an idea of the transitional process. And our findings, we'll bring just one of our findings about the use of digital technology by them. Here, so there is a lot of changes. These are just pictures, so you have an idea how is the camp and how would they be living. So they didn't have bathrooms inside of their houses. They have these shared bathrooms outside of the houses. And within the army, some fighters lived in romantic partnerships, but they were not able to start families, neither allowed to have children. However, some ex-combatants carried out the complete pregnancy and gave their children to friends and family members outside of FARC. And so this happened before, and now because of there was a baby boom in this camp happening, because now people could have families, they could have kids, they could get pregnant. So, but there is one case that was very surprising. A female guerrilla that I met, she had a children in 1984, and it was too dangerous to keep her son in the group, so she gave away at the age of 19 months. So after the peace agreement, she finally could meet him, but the family who had adopted her son had changed her name, making it difficult to find him. So she the first thing that she tried was Facebook, but he had changed his name. And then she hired a lawyer for 1 year to finally find her son. So nowadays they have a very, very good contacts, but she had to hire a lawyer. There was another ex-combatant who told me that he had to contact with his family he had no contact with his family for 20 years. So he used the first money he received after the peace agreement to buy a smartphone to contact his family. He installed Facebook, registered a fake profile, and found his mother, but he didn't want to ask him to be his friend. So he asked a friend to contact her by phone, travel to the place where she lived, and in person tell her and the family that he was alive and willing to meet again. And then after that, he could be friends of her mom and his family on Facebook. So you can also find this CSW presentation on YouTube. And then you can hear more stories about the FARC ex-combatants transitions and how digital technology has become essential to support aspects of FARC ex-combatant social capital. And as I mentioned at the beginning, like bonding and bridging, it means that bonding is that they are very connected to their own friends from the former FARC guerrilla. And bridging is a way of connecting to their families, to the people outside of their community, the community that they live. So they maintain their social capital as the foundation on which to build their post-conflict life. And just to end, I want to say that these are the people that I work with in Acará, in the first example, in the Brazilian Amazon. So I want to say that being an academic, you can feel really lonely and alone. However, as an activist, you always have people around you. For me, to be an activist is to explore possibilities to build knowledge together, to adapt to the specific context we want to study, and to combine academic knowledge with popular knowledge and wisdom. Similar, Antônia Darde and Fausto Borda stated and argues that each of us has partial knowledge, that we need each other to understand the world better. Differences in understanding about the purpose of research within academia and the communities with which we work also relate to publication practices. Academic systems of publishing provide incentives for researchers to engage in more or less covert acts of exploitation, where conversations and activities with communities become raw materials drawn through a process of transformation and delivered as commodities or papers, like an academic supply chain. So that's what I want to say. I hope I was not so academic at this end. I didn't want to be, but now I have some questions that I also, like things that I usually, when I'm doing research, I try to answer as an activist and academic, and I'm happy to also talk about it. But I think I'm more than 30 minutes already. Thank you.
Many, many, many thanks for this, Debora. Everybody, please feel free to turn your cameras back on again, post your questions in the chat, or just unmute yourselves and just ask away. I'm very, very sure that you're just burning with questions because